a warning?
There's nothing to worry about.
I'm worried that you work in an office, have children, celebrate wedding anniversaries. The world of heterosexual is a sick and boring life.
Showtime! I'm blinded by such beauty.
How can I compete? You're twice the woman I am.
Paramount Pictures proudly presents The Addams Family. Unhappy, darling.
Yes, completely.
Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, November 22nd.
Welcome back to the show, listeners.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. I mean, it's not exactly spooky season yet, but
We're
us,
revving up for it. I
we
mean,
are.
we're doing October next week on the podcast, so
Yes,
this is
indeed.
kind of, we are dipping our toe
Yeah.
into the holiday season.
We'll get
I mean,
there.
this is kind of the quintessential holiday movie because you get everything in this movie.
every holiday.
Not quite every holiday.
Well, listeners,
Well, you
if
get
you know
Halloween
us,
and Christmas.
you know that we don't wait for October to watch spooky movies here at this podcast. So let's jump right into it. My name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and,
And
these are the movies that made us gay.
Yes.
Very special guest on the podcast
Absolutely.
today. I have been listening to their last season. I'm getting caught up for the current season. But Michael and Callum from Once Upon a VHS, welcome to
the show.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the movies that made us gay.
Hello. Thank you so much. Yeah, lovely. A pleasure to be here. We're big fans of the podcast as well. And thank you for the shout out on the last Unicorn episode as well. Really
Absolutely. All the way from across the pond, we stumbled across your show on Instagram, actually, and we noticed how much kind of overlap there was. And I reached out to you two just kind of wanting to give you a heads up that, hey, we're not completely aping everything out of your catalog. It's just weird timing because we had done Last Unicorn and something else that I feel...
Never-ending story.
Never-ending story.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could have chatted a little bit about that. But this is the thing. These are the movies that made us gay, I guess.
Yes.
So it's all we're all in the same swimming pool here, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and we reached out, and Scott started listening. Well, we both started listening to your show, and kind of the rest is history. We thought, hey,
There's a lot of stupid shit that you guys say that I'm like, oh yeah, like I feel like Pete and I have had this similar exchange.
Yeah.
So you definitely
exact conversation.
You take after our hearts on our show.
Yeah.
And we had you over today to get to a movie that I've been keeping on the back burner for years at this point. We have covered the sequel, but I think that I'm a little closer to the first movie, and we are covering The Addams Family, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, written by Caroline Thompson and Larry Wilson, based on the characters from the cartoon created by cartoonist Charles Addams, and the 1964 television series produced by David Levy, released November 22nd, 1991. So I thought you guys would be fun to have over for The Addams Family. We covered Addams Family Values. That was a Black Friday episode from I want to say 2020 or something.
Yeah,
I think it was
during the height of the pandemic. I remember you made a couple of little references to that on the episode because I listened to it recently. And really interesting to hear you mention that you feel closer to the first film, because I think the received wisdom is that the sequel is better. The sequel is better.
Yep.
Right.
And that was what I had in mind until I haven't rewatched the sequel as yet, but we'll get into it with Addams Family 1.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has this just kind of close affinity with Debbie, right?
Yeah.
From the sequel.
Joan, Queen, understandable. That is always on the list of great performances never to be nominated for an Oscar, which I get. But this was always the movie that was on steady rotation in my household growing up. I have seen this movie probably upwards to 50 times. That it was just on repeat as a child. So I'm excited to get into that. So what is kind of all of our backgrounds with this original movie? We went into it a little bit on our Addams Family Values episode, but specifically for Addams Family 91.
Yeah, boys, why don't you take it away? Tell us your early memories of watching this film.
I think for me, this is like my first route into the Addams Family. I think a lot of people have the sitcom or even the cartoons, but this was my sort of first introduction to the Addams Family. Obviously, the sitcoms from the 60s. They did show it in the UK. It was a very much a like daytime reruns situation. But I think because it was in black and white, I was I couldn't get away with a black and white film when I was a child. So this was my introduction to the Addams Family, and very similar. It would have been a film. It was a film we had on VHS, and we would have. It was in pretty heavy rotation with the sequel as well.
Ironically, given the name of our podcast, this was not a film that I had on VHS as a child. For a bit of context, my family, my parents are not really movie lovers at all. They are not what you would call creepy, kooky, mysterious, or spooky. But I remember how excited my dad was at the upcoming first BBC broadcast of the film. So that was in 1994. It was part of the Halloween programming for the BBC in 1994. And this was the first time it was on television because there was a much bigger gap between theatrical releases and then the TV broadcast back then. So I remember us all sitting down as a family to watch this film, which was unheard of. This is one of very few movies that I watched with my mum and dad together. And I distinctly remember my mum saying, "You'll probably like this film, Callum, because the grandma's a witch." So that was she knew the whole.
She was right.
And she was right.
I feel like I'm joining some dots there with your dad. I think your dad is secretly mysterious and spooky because this week Callum's dad never wants to go to the cinema ever, but for whatever reason this week was insistent on going to see Beetlejuice. So there's a real thread, a specific type of film he wants to see.
There's a through line.
Love that. I was 13 when this movie was released. Okay. But, I was a specific kind of 13-year-old kid, so I feel like I was very much like, ooh, I got to see this one. Here in the States, the Munsters were on more heavy of a rotation.
They were on Nick at Night
than the
at
Addams
the time.
Family.
Yep.
Here in Los Angeles, they were on regular television. It wasn't even Nick at Night. They were just on, over-the-air TV and constant reruns. But Addams Family wasn't. I wasn't as, I loved the Munsters. Even though it was a black and white sitcom, it just was so funny to me. It was just so like cutesy and just of its time. And I just loved Herman Munster. I thought it was so funny. And Addams Family, I was always like, what is that? Like, they're not even monsters.
They're not.
Like, what even are they?
Because you're thinking of Universal Monsters. Or like monsters, yeah.
Yeah, the Munsters was very much like he is a Frankenstein. She is a vampire. The son is a werewolf. The Addams Family, I was just like, who are they though? And my mom was very much like, oh no, they're really cool. They're really funny. Like if you like the Munsters, you'll really like them, whatever. And much like when the 1988 Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, was released, they started showing the 60s Batman series on television here in the States. They did the same thing with the Addams Family. So to gear up for it, I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. Watched it. I was like, all right, cute, like it. I'm going to go see the movie. Was very excited, went to see it. And I was just like, this movie was made for me. Yeah. Even as a 13-year-old in 1991, I was like, well, this looks like Tim Burton made this movie. I know he didn't.
I think Tim Burton passed on.
He did pass on it.
Yep.
I know he didn't. Yeah.
And don't let Barry Sonnenfeld hear you say that because I know he's got a chip on his shoulder. It's not Burtonian. It's not Tim Burton-esque. It's Sonnenfeldian.
Right.
I forgot until doing my notes that Caroline Thompson co-wrote it.
Yeah.
And frequent collaborator, and I think that she was in a relationship with Tim Burton around this time.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew she wrote Edward Scissorhands, didn't she? I think that was her first screenwriting credit.
She also did a lot of work on Nightmare Before Christmas, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, sorry, our cats are acting the fool this morning, but so even like the font of the credits, like that handwritten kind of style, and like the really long long block letters, and then little script like underneath, like Addams, and then the really big. I was just like, okay, everything about this is speaking to me, and my like weird love for like Tim Burton movies. I was thinking the other day, I was just kind of like getting ready in the morning, and I was like, oh wow, I fully have 3 Tim Burton tattoos. I forgot.
We just covered it hasn't come out yet, but we just covered Beetlejuice.
I'm like, I'm not that guy. I'm not that like Hot Topic like little girly, but I was like, oh, I fully have 3 really big. All 3 of them are big. I have 3 really big Tim Burton tattoos. I was like, oh gosh, I guess I am that guy.
This is a safe space for Hot Topic girlies, I think.
You know, I may be in my mid-40s and half my wardrobe is Hot Topic t-shirts. It's okay. You know, it's everything's good. But I immediately got there was an Addams Family Game Boy game that was a tie into the first movie. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I thought they did such an amazing job with the way they kind of kept to the sitcom, but then kind of made it its own thing. So, yeah, something about me being 13 and kind of coming into, okay, I appreciate these Tim Burton movies.
And you kind of have a blank slate for the Addams Family, too. Like, it's not like you have any nostalgia.
Yeah, because I wasn't so tied to it as I was with the Munsters. I really feel like in the U.S. in the 80s, the Munsters were just kind of like every kid just watched it because it was just always on.
It's funny you should mention that because my memory or my perspective on it, they did show the Addams Family reruns in the UK, and they also showed the Munsters. And having seen the Addams Family movie before I saw either of those series, my perception was, the Addams Family is the original and the Munsters is the sort of cheap, flattened knockoff. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of the more sitcom version.
Or the more sitcom, and the more exaggerated, like you mentioned, Universal Monsters characters compared to maybe the more subtly, like, satirical Addams Family. But it kind of blew my mind to know actually the Munsters came first. Yeah. As a sitcom, as a TV series. Yeah. And even the sitcom is it's quite tonally different from the original New Yorker comics. So
this was an early movie memory for me that I was taken to this by my dad. My dad took both my sister and I. I was probably 5 years old. I have vague memories of going to the movie theater. I mainly remember losing my damn mind over Thing.
Yes.
The FedEx scene and Thing crossing the road, like the Lassie Come Home moment where Thing is trying to warn Gomez of where Morticia is right now. Yeah. I remember sitting in the theater and my sister and I losing our damn minds over that scene. So early movie memory for me was going to the Addams Family with my dad. That, in fact, I remember watching the last episode with my dad, Beetlejuice, so kind of 2 father and son movies back to back. And then we got this movie on video cassette. We can have a little side conversation about this, but a little deep dive into when you could buy movies from McDonald's. That our tape came from McDonald's.
Only $5.99 when you buy a large sandwich.
Did they do that in the UK?
They didn't do it in the UK, but like when you mentioned it, I had to go on this deep dive. What a random selection of movies as well. It was Wayne's
so
World,
random.
The Addams Family, Ghost, and of all things, Charlotte's Web. Like,
I want to say that our Charlotte's Web, Ghost, and Dances with Wolves and Field of Dreams all came from McDonald's.
Wow.
Yep.
Ghost is not a film that I'm thinking about when I'm at McDonald's. But what a peculiar selection.
So I feel like they were trying to go for like movies for the entire family, but Ghost?
I remember watching Ghost with my whole family, but
I mean, we did go see Ghost in the theater as a family.
It was a popular tape because it was one of the more affordable home videos that you could buy at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because they were so expensive, VHS, back in the day. And then to have the opportunity to get something this cheap, I'm sure Paramount must have struck a deal with them, maybe in the run-up to Addams Family Values or something along those lines, like that it was, get this cheap, and it's, everyone's a winner because it helps to promote the film. It means that people can get buy into the Paramount brand at a low cost,
I sent you the video of George Takei for Paramount Home Video, and that was attached to our Addams Family copy. And that was probably one of my first introductions to Star Trek. Was George Takei doing that introduction to the Addams Family, where he was talking that you could save a whopping $250 on a home video purchase. Yeah. So that was fully my first introduction to Star Trek.
There you go, George opening the doors.
I don't recall having this VHS. I want to say my younger brother might have had it in his collection, but I don't ever recall seeing that George Takei walking around the Enterprise D talking about rebates. And rebates, listeners, young people out there, if you're not familiar, you would send this coupon back with your proof of purchase. So it was like something you would cut off the box with like a barcode on it to prove that you actually bought it and didn't just steal the coupon. And then they would mail you a check for $2.50.
I know, and like the number of coupons cut out and stashed away in people's drawers. One of these days I'll send this away. But it's not worth the postage of sending it to get this rebate. Yeah.
Well, it was $2.50 if you bought the tape. It was $1 if you rented it. So you would have to use a stamp to get your. I mean, at that time, a stamp here was probably 20 cents or something. So, and then you get your $1 rebate in the mail. That's wild to me. But I feel like this was a big home video kind of deal. Just kind of everybody had it in their collection. And I feel like I was 13, but I was like a very much kind of. I knew who I was at 13. I was not going to like the kids' birthday parties. That was like, this is a Top Gun birthday party. I was like,
I would love to go to an Addams Family birthday party.
I mean, that would be kind of cool.
So kind of the alternative lifestyle of the Addams really spoke to you then. Spoke to all of us.
Well, I feel like it was that first viewing when I was 13 in the theater going, oh, okay, because my whole thing was they're not monsters, what are they? And that was when I really kind of just understood, they're just kind of cool goth.
They're eccentric rich people.
Mm-hmm. They're queer. That was your introduction to drag, the original doll, Morticia Addams.
I mean,
with the Miss Fame tape on the face.
The Miss Fame face tape, all of it.
The metal corset. The Miss Fame face tape, the whole works. Morticia Addams is drag.
Yes, absolutely. They don't lean into it in this movie as much as in the sequel, but I mean the Morticia Addams lighting.
Yes, that strip of lighting across her eyes.
Yeah, it's so great. I always refer back to, I always bring conversations back to Batman, but Joel Schumacher talks about in his Batman movies, the studio and this term that I don't know if he created it or the studio or whatever, but this term toyetic of wanting to turn things into toys.
You have to lead with that in production design of can you size this down to be a toy?
Right, but what... Was this a missed opportunity for Addams Family? I think
that they were kind of there. I think that there was Addams Family toys.
I don't really remember any Addams Family toys, but what I do remember is the pinball machine. The pinball machine was ubiquitous. Everywhere I turned, there was an Addams Family pinball machine. And I don't know a lot about it, but I think it's got a reputation for being like a really well put together pinball.
It has its
game.
own Wikipedia page. I was on it today.
Wow.
You get bonus points for hitting Cousin It.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I want to talk about kind of how this movie. I think the idea originally was not necessarily to turn the sitcom into a movie, but just the fact that this did originate as a comic strip, one panel comic strip in like the New Yorker and publications like that. I don't know if it was ever in Playboy, but one panel comic strip. And I think the idea was this is more so going to be an adaptation of the comic strip than the sitcom. But like really, when you kind of get into it, it does seem like there's a lot of stuff that they took from this sitcom, and became these iconic things.
It's obviously a rights issue, isn't it? Yes, we're remaking the comics. Never mind the fact that Thing as a hand is directly from the sitcom. And I think the whole impetus for it was Scott Rudin, who was the head of production at 20th Century Fox, riding in a van with some other execs, and then one of the kids started singing the sitcom theme tune. Of course, the iconic theme tune, everybody singing along, clicking their fingers along to it. And a light bulb appeared above his head and said, do you know what? I need to pitch this. There's obviously brand recognition. Talk about toyetic there.
Yeah.
It feels like it, in terms of like that sitcom and comic book or like cartoon origin, it does feel like it honors both of them for me, this version of it. Like, because one of the things I did, I really respond to the visual gags in this. Like it opens almost the first image of the Addams Family is them pouring like hot oil onto carol singers, which is like an Addams Family cartoon. But the plot of this was for me was the thing where I was like, this is so strange, but it's a sitcom plot. I think it kind of works. It operates like a sitcom for me, anyway.
No, you're right. It kind of is giving a little origin story,
But just enough origin
story. To me as a kid, though, even as a 13-year-old, like little faggy movie connoisseur, I was just like, no origin stories, jump right in. That's why I love that. And also, still in 1991, I'm convincing myself and everyone around me that Batman is the perfect film, right? Even though it's got problems. But I'm just like, no, Batman wasn't even an origin story. He was already Batman. We don't care. Like, we don't see, he's just going for it. And this one I was like, oh, okay, with the whole Fester thing has grown on me.
I really enjoy it.
I feel like Dr. Pinderschloss is just like camp. I love this. Like the German accent is insane. Like
so
I think this actress is just doing the Lord's work with this like, oh no. And we're watching it today and I'm just like quoting everything.
Yeah, I know her, this entire script. It's just written on the back of my brain.
Yeah, there's something about it at the time. I was like, oh, I wish it was just them in full, use of their power. But yeah,
but I think
I love it now.
But I think that one of the problems with doing movies like this, and we've seen this a lot with tackling pretty one-dimensional characters like this, is what is the story?
Yeah.
It's just, who really are these people? Yeah. And I think that the long-lost brother device is really clever because you can kind of write in all of this character backstory that you may not have got if it was just a straight up sort of 90-minute episode of the TV show.
Yeah.
So it's something that I think is really clever.
It is a clever device, and there is that room for maneuver with it because there's this story of originally the film was more ambiguous about whether it was the real Fester or whether it was Gordon the imposter. And I this is such a strange situation. The cast press ganging Christina Ricci to go and appeal to Barry Sonnenfeld.
They had just done their table read.
She's like, please make Fester the real Fester. Like,
send the cute little girl to talk to Barry about the ending of the movie.
Right, but yeah, it's an interesting plot that they've chosen. I think it is quite refreshing that we didn't just get the Addams family origin story, and that we didn't just get aren't the Addams Family weird, that it wasn't just that whole second section where they're out finding jobs. Although that's great, I'm glad that we've got this interesting, and it's kind of convoluted and a weird plot for what's not quite a family film, but to have this whole story about financial fraud and the lawyers like, you know, trying to get into the scheme with this loan shark. It's an interesting decision, and I think it does pay off. It felt like I was watching a kind of grown-up movie when I was
Sure,
definitely.
Sure. I want to talk definitely about Tully Elford, played by Dan Hedaya.
Movies that made us gay treasures.
He's our Lucky Charm. He's our John Ratzenberger.
I was counting our Dan Hedaya movies on the podcast. We have talked about Addams Family, Clueless, Commando, Mulholland Drive, Dick, In and Out, The First Wives Club, To Die For, and A Smoky Mountain Christmas. There may even be one more thrown in there. So these are numbers that we get for actresses like Nicole Kidman or Drew Barrymore.
Yeah. Dan, truly a movie that made us gay. Veteran. Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to do a little bit of a talk about him in a second. But someone recently, another guest of ours, brought up the point that this movie is kind of spiritually very similar to something like the Brady Bunch movies.
Yes.
I think Chris Gallo talked about that.
Yeah, Chris Gallo from Golden Girls Posters. We just had him on to talk about the Stepford Wives remake and how campy that movie is. And we were just kind of brought up the Brady Bunch movie. And he brought up that the Addams Family really kind of fits into that, in that they're in their own world.
Yeah.
But it's the present, and everyone around them is just like, what the hell are you?
Yeah.
You know,
and the sitcom connection as well. It's, and that is, you know, how they can be self-contained because it is their own little world. They're doing their own thing.
I love that it exists in the 90s though, because there could have been a version of that film where they sort of leaned into the nostalgia and it was set in the 60s and they kind of leaned into the sitcom of it all. But I love that they exist in the real world and they have to sort of figure out the real world. It feels like a very queer coded film in lots of ways.
Absolutely. I don't want to talk too much about the Rob Zombie Monsters film for Netflix.
A feature-length Skittles commercial.
But I think what didn't work about that was, I don't know, that kind of took place in this weird, ephemeral kind of Monsters universe. You know, and it was just like, sure, everyone's kooky and crazy.
Which I get on the surface of things, but is it a be careful what you wish for type of thing?
I think that movie didn't work for a lot of reasons, but I think one of them was the fact that they were not this fish out of water, which was the point of the sitcom. On the sitcom, you know, Herman Munster would crack mirrors and people would like fly out of their cars, and like, when they would see him walking down the street, you know, would just like shoot off into space because they were so crazy, and I think that was something that didn't make that movie work. Whereas in these films, it is that they're set in, you know, and when they do leave the house, you know, later on in the second half of the movie, and Wednesday and Pugsley get to have their little lemonade stand and all of that. I think that's when it really works so well.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I think it's a delicate balance, because I think you could go too far in either direction. You could make it completely, you know, generic Monsters world, or you could make it so 90s that it hurts. I'm glad that we don't have Wednesday and Pugsley on skateboards and stuff,
right?
We do have a very 90s rap song at the end, in the end credits.
The Addams Groove. We do
MC Hammer.
Say what we want to say.
But I kind of like they're just listening to the radio as they're coming from the auction.
Sure.
Like, I think that's very charming. That there are certain things that they partake in, and listening to rap music on the radio is one of them.
Watching Sally Jesse Raphael is another.
Yep. Oh my God. Mr. Addams. We don't know how you can find them.
Stop calling. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say that MC Hammer was on Saturday Night Live performing this, and Christina Ricci introduced him.
They're in the video.
Yeah.
Aww.
I don't even think she was hosting. They just brought her out to because she was little,
That music video for this as well is something to behold. I really recommend people check
Wild.
that out because it does have it has the whole cast lip syncing along to the Addams Groove, and I don't know, MC Hammer is like a half man or like a disembodied head at one point. And he's fencing with Gomez. It's wild, this music video. I wish that we could bring back music videos like that where, they maybe just added a couple of days shooting time to involve that music video as well. It was pretty spectacular. And that music video as well played at the beginning of some of the first screenings of the movie. So you were kind of getting spoiled for the content. It's like, I don't want to watch all of these clips and all these bits and pieces of the movie. I just want to see the movie as is without the MC Hammer music video.
Yeah, they should have played it after. That's interesting. The earliest kind of characters that we get that are real world or modern day people that interact with the Addamses are Tully Elford and his wife Margaret, played by Dan Hedaya and Dana Ivey. But
love Dana Ivey.
We love Dana Ivey. She's so
Treasure.
good in this. Mm-hmm. Just her the Dana Ivey crazy eyes. Just like
you also have to give credit to Dana Ivey's wig.
That hair is amazing.
Combed.
It's giving like Chastity Pariah from the Addams Family, or from the Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, but also Drag Race fans out there. It's giving Katya's like space age future of drag.
Oh, sure, from All Stars.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Like that helmet hair. Yeah, and Katya's is just an exaggerated version, but it's really that's the look. But even them, even Tully and Margaret, they're modern day like regular people from the 90s, but even they are this like heightened character. They're playing these like heightened characters. He's just kind of like this like what even. Is he a lawyer?
I think
he's just a money manager.
He's their lawyer, I think. Yeah,
money manager, accountant.
Yeah. All of that rolled into one.
A very generic 90s comedy villain.
Yes. But I love that Dana Ivey's character is just like, well, she's his wife, but she also has dealings with Morticia, and
she does charity work on the side with Morticia.
Yeah. And I love that she gets her redemption. She gets her little relationship with cousin. Yes. Well, it's not even a redemption. He's the villain, but it's not like here are the normie couple that are ruining everything, which would have been a kind of easy direction to go in. I think that we get this whole other life for Margaret is quite a nice twist on what we might
like she can be an Addams, which I think is kind of charming.
Yeah, she's accepted.
I love the scene. I love the scenes with Cousin It. I think that they're so sweet.
Well, because the whole time, you're right. She could have gone in the direction of being like this snobby woman who's just like, who are these freaks, and not really accepting of them. But she never really was just like, oh, these people are gross. She was just like, oh, yes, Morticia's a little eccentric. Yeah. But she was very appreciative of the finger trap as this like very extravagant, auction gift.
They're for widows and orphans.
For widows.
We need more of them.
Man, the widows and orphans. I mean, we just needed to get Erica Jane Nevada. I try not to bring everything back to the Real Housewives, but every time they brought up the widows and orphans, I was just thinking of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So sorry, listener.
Speaking of that Chinese finger trap, another sounds weird, another dad connection. I remember my dad came back from overseas somewhere, and he bought one of these Chinese finger traps, and I've only just made the connection. I was like, why the hell did he bring one of these back? Because he was a fan of the Addams Family. That must have been where he saw it and got the idea, I assume.
There's a piece of acting from Angelica. I'm a huge fan of this performance by Angelica, and there is a subtle piece of acting where they're sitting in the back of the car coming from the auction where they just way overbid to buy back the finger trap, and Fester has his fingers caught in it, and he's like, how do you take it off? And Morticia is just like, well, there's a trick to it, obviously. And the little subtle acting that Angelica has on her face of how she looks at him, and she sort of subtly looks at Gomez, it's a masterclass in just kind of being so subtle but communicating so much that this woman is also doubting Fester. She's so good in that scene.
Yes, and in such a heightened role as well, to be able to do those little nuances. She's great. This is just such a brilliant cast all around.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, the
This
Tullys,
is-
but yeah.
This is an argument for the casting Oscar, I
Sure.
think. This
Absolutely.
film. It's so good. It's so good. Because Christina Ricci, like, that's a child.
Yeah.
That's a little girl.
Yes.
And she's spooky from the jump. Like, some of the choices she's making are incredible. Like, and you can see why in the second film, a lot of she gets her own kind of plot and stuff like that. It's, yeah. The moment that I love with her is when, like, Fester is reading to her, I think, and sort of tucking her into bed, and she makes him kiss the beheaded doll and then the doll's head, and then she lies back like a sort of Dracula in a grave kind of thing. And apparently that was Christina Ricci's idea, to lie like that. It wasn't something someone had given her. And I just think things like that are just like, how is this child so... Like, it feels like she is Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive stuff.
I remember Christina doing press for probably Yellow Jackets, or no, I think it was probably for Wednesday when she was on the Netflix series. I think that she tells a story of her mom driving her to the audition, and her mom just kind of saying, like, how are you going to approach this character? And her mom just telling her, you really love Winona Ryder and Beetlejuice. Just do that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you can see that. They feel like there's always a girl in the culture who is that goth girl, and it feels like Winona Ryder, Christina Ricci, Fairuza Balk, like Jenna Ortega is probably the current one. Yeah. Like there is always that girl, and I think we need her. Like 4 13-year-old gay boys who shop at Hot Topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just she got a couple of great one-liners in there, but she still is able to be a kid. Like in that scene that Scott was talking about with the finger trap, they're driving home from the auction and she's laying asleep on Gomez's lap. You know, she wakes up for that, and she even looks over and is just like, "What the hell is going on?" But they still do get to be kids, which I love. The actor who plays Pugsley is doing well too. I think the two of them do great, but just Christina Ricci just really shines in that character, and just that it does stand to reason why in the sequel they are given so much more screen.
The short list for Morticia of who was considered or maybe offered as interesting, that I think this was probably offered to Cher.
Yep. All right.
A Little Mermaids reunion.
Well, was this before or after?
This is after.
This is after
Mermaids is 90.
Wow.
Isn't that strange? Like, I would have never thought. I would have thought that Mermaids was afterwards. But
yeah.
But yeah.
It feels like every single female role in the 90s was offered to Cher at some point.
And not only female.
And some...
Yeah. Sorry,
and some non-female roles as well. She was... My favourite Cher fact is that she was supposed to play Louis in the Interview with a Vampire film.
They were going to gender swap it. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is before our delicate sensibilities couldn't handle two men in those roles.
David Geffen really had to put his foot down.
Oh, geez.
And also, I was reading that Kim Basinger, I think, turned it down to do another movie.
I can't know.
There's something about the physicality of Angelica Huston with Raul Julia as well, like that she's so tall and statuesque, and he's kind of a short king. They do. While we were watching it, I was like, they're a T for T couple. They seem like they have that energy, and I just love. I love how sexy they are together. Yes. I love how much of a wife guy he is, that he's so into this woman.
I love that
you couldn't not be.
I love that they cast her age appropriate as well. I feel like I don't. Just them being this age appropriate for each other, I really love. And just Gomez being a wife guy is just kind of icon. But I think as we may or may not have seen, there is a direct-to-television or direct-to-video sequel.
I wonder if it was one of those things that there was a 3-picture deal with Paramount. They did the same thing with the Brady Bunch.
Right.
Yeah.
But they ultimately cast Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah and Tim Curry.
Who on paper...
Sure,
on paper,
absolutely.
I'm like, okay, great, but just it's pretty. I haven't revisited the Addams Family reunion, but I just remember. But I don't know how much of that is to do with the performances, so much as just the direction and the script of it. I feel that got aimed in just a different direction. It felt a lot more dumbed down, and just not in keeping with the tone of Addams Family or values. Yeah, but Raul Julia really was such a revelation for me on watching this again. He is so good. And we watched the extended version, which has the full Mamushka sequence in there, and he's singing and dancing and fencing, and just what a brilliant performer. I hadn't really appreciated that on when I was a kid, because I'm like, who cares about the guy? It's all about Morticia, and fellow goth girly Wednesday. But honestly, he really, really blew me away watching it again. Like, he's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that we're talking about kind of the tone of this and of Addams Family Values, but there's a quote from Charles Addams about the sitcom, and he said that the characters were only half as evil as he wrote them in the comics. Because I feel like if you read the single panel comics, like we were saying at the top, they're pouring boiling oil on Christmas carolers. So
I like that. And later in the movie, you can see the stain outside of the door from the oil. I love that
splash,
that little piece of production design.
Yeah, but and obviously in the sitcom, they're hardly evil at all. And he said that they were half as evil. But I feel like the movies are a good kind of right down the middle in that tone.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree.
Yeah, they still got to be a little evil. Like they're, we do see them with the oil at the top of the movie, but really later on, they don't have bad intentions. They just want to hang out with each other.
It does make me wonder, though, this whole up is down kind of reverse situation thing that's going on. Like, oh, are you unhappy, my darling? Oh, desperately,
right.
When are we being straight down the line? It's a little bit difficult to follow sometimes, but
they're camp. They're camp.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're committed to the bit, and they're always on, which I love.
Yeah, I also had kind of let's see, where is it? Oh, the original description from Charles Addams of the characters. So Gomez and Pugsley are enthusiastic. Morticia is even in disposition, muted, witty, sometimes deadly. Grandma Frump is foolishly good-natured. Wednesday is her mother's
Grandma Frump.
Yeah. Oh, in the comic, Grandma Frump is
grandmama.
She's Morticia's mother.
Yeah.
So she's Grandma Frump. And then I think in the show,
Fester is Morticia's uncle in the show.
Yeah,
and then I think it was the cartoons where they switched it so that Fester was Gomez's brother instead. It's
right.
It's whatever needs to happen for the purposes of the plot,
sure.
I guess. But
yeah. So it goes on to say, a closely knit family, the real head being Morticia, although each of the others is a definite character, except for Grandma, who's easily led. Many of the troubles they have as a family are due to Grandma's fumbling, weak character. The house is a wreck, of course, but this is a house-proud family just the same, and every trap door is in good repair. Money is no problem.
Eccentric rich people.
Yeah.
There you go, taking the money, old money, do what they want to do, say what they want to say, etc. So,
yeah, I never really all that stuff about the money just kind of not really went over my head, but I didn't think about it too much. Just they just have this.
They have a whole
cavern of gold
vault and quite literal caverns of doubloons.
Yeah.
And a whole roller coaster set up to take them down to the vaults as well. And that's a sequence that I feel like was in so many of these films of this time period, there's a scene like that in Casper, which is another one which is in that lineage of Beetlejuice and whatnot, I think.
Have you revisited Casper recently?
No, have you?
Casper, you should watch Casper this fall because Casper is fucking wild.
Yeah.
I love it, but when you dissect that story, it is kind of batshit.
Yeah, there's the bitchy ghost. I remember her. Somebody turns into the Crypt Keeper at some point. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot. But yeah, that whole
cameos from the Ghostbusters.
Yes. Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, that's definitely one I'm wanting to revisit for Halloween this year.
Yeah, no, you're right. The weird, kooky roller coaster. I feel like we've seen a lot. In this movie in particular. That crazy song that's accompanying them going down, like that to me just feels very Barry Sonnenfeld. I think he's got this kind of like Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers kind of feel to his. Kind of in contrast to Tim Burton, I feel like he has an aesthetic, and you see it in the Addams Family movies. You kind of see it a little bit in Men in Black, and it can lean kind of this dark and gothic thing. But I think underneath it all is a very like cartoony thing, and you really feel it in that crazy roller coaster bit and
and the
cinematographer turned director. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Part of I was going to say a lot too in Gomez and his fencing kind of like situation. I was wondering how much of that kind of comes from, again, is Gomez being a fencer? Is that from the sitcom? I think it is.
I think that you see John Aston fencing on the sitcom.
Right.
Yeah.
But did they make that up?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that was for the sitcom. The same as the train set, I think, was a sitcom invention as well. So
Scott mentioned that when he initially goes down into the crypt or the caverns or whatever, there's like a whipping sound, and he says, "Down, down, kitty."
Oh yes,
it's the lion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I sorely missed. I was like, "Where's the damn lion?"
At least we got the polar bear rug, like
yes, yeah.
Oh, and we had a little visual representation of the octopus as well. It's on the end of I think it's Wednesday's bed. We've got the octopus.
Oh, sure, yeah, it is in Wednesday's. Yeah. All right, let's see. So, okay, Scott, did you want to do the Dan Hedaya thing later?
Oh, I just kind of have a little mini. I mean, we always do our leading ladies quiz, and I decided to just do a little mini one for Dan Hedaya, just because it's kind of ridiculous how ingrained in movies from our young adult and childhood that man is.
Sure.
Like, just working character actor that you just found him in everything. So can you all tag team his most known for on IMDb of the first 4 movies that come up
be
when you type in Dan Hedaya? And we have covered, little hint, we have covered 3 of these movies.
Okay. Most known for on Dan Hedaya's IMDb. You two are familiar with the whole most known for situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Is First Wives Club on there?
First Wives Club is not there.
Most known to the gays, but not to the IMDb audience at large.
Wow. Is Clueless on there?
Clueless is there.
Okay.
Yep.
Clueless is, right. Okay.
All right.
Cher's dad.
Okay, so 3 to go.
We have one that this is a huge cast that I kind of forgot that he was in this movie. I saw this movie once. It did have a big following at the time. I don't really know how fondly remembered it is now, but it ended up getting this director a huge franchise from the success of this movie.
Oh, I was going to say Get Shorty. It's not Get Shorty.
Not quite. One of the actors won an Oscar in supporting for this movie. That you kind of tend to forget that he won in supporting this year.
Huh.
Kind of a canceled celebrity.
What year is it?
This is 95.
95.
Canceled celebrity.
Huge won an
cast.
Oscar.
Yep. Director that is kind of also a little bit canceled. People don't really like to talk about him. Even though he had a wildly successful movie a few years ago. That did end up winning Oscars.
Usual Suspects.
It is The Usual Suspects. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
I was about to say cancelled directors and actors is really not
I
narrowing.
know. That doesn't help.
And you get both in this movie.
Yeah.
So 2 more, and these are movies that we have covered on the show.
Okay, so we got Clueless, Usual Suspects, and then the next 2 we already covered. Is one of them Commando?
One of them is Commando. Very good.
Commando.
I think that he plays South American in Commando.
He does play South American in Commando. Hey, he also has a Latin name in Alien 3. And that movie came, or not Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. Yeah. That was at a time when they probably shouldn't have been having him play Latin characters anymore.
At
okay.
the time, Dan could do whatever Dan wanted, I guess.
So
racially ambiguous.
So we have one more.
One more.
And it's, well, it can't be a Smoky Mountain Christmas, but
no. Is it Mulholland Drive?
It is Mulholland Drive. Yep. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit scene in Mulholland Drive, but it's very memorable.
Very small scene in that. But that's a big movie.
All right, so we'll just do 2 more. So what do you think the highest grossing Dan Hedaya movie? I had no memory that he was in this movie, but it is his highest grossing movie.
Okay.
You probably aren't going to get this, so I will give you a hint.
Okay, we haven't talked about it yet.
There is some Harry Potter connection in this movie.
A Harry Potter connection, Dan Hedaya, and it's the highest grossing movie in his filmography.
Once again, I have seen this movie. I have a vague memory of it. I don't remember him being in it.
Okay, can you give us a year?
This was probably 2017, maybe?
Oh, it wasn't one of the awful Fantastic
Beasts?
It's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. No memory of him being in that movie.
Oh, you know what? I feel like he's like an elf, and he's like a CG character.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, dear.
Is he like a goblin or something?
He's a goblin, yeah.
Right, listen, somebody's going to need to put Dan Hedaya in a blockbuster before he talks. Let's talk Fantastic Beasts, because, come on, it needs to be.
Ooh.
All right, one last one. What do you think his highest rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes is? It is at 100%. This is a drama in the 90s that I did grow up watching, so kind of like family based. Like you could watch this with your parents. Maybe even this would be a movie that you would see wheeled in on a TV during school.
Oh gosh, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from the 90s.
Mm-hmm. This movie is about the game of chess.
Oh god!
Yeah,
is it Searching for Bobby Fischer?
Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yep.
Wow. Never seen it. I don't imagine it a movie about chess. But if it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, they must be right, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's our little mini Dan Hedaya quiz.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Oh. All right. Well, Dan Hedaya, if you're listening, you're on. You're welcome on the show.
I mean,
anytime.
we have to appreciate him while we still have him. I don't know if he's that old.
All right, you're putting him half in the grave.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to Addams Family. We talked a little bit about Dr. Pinderschloss, but I do want to talk about Elizabeth Wilson.
She's a terrible mother.
Elizabeth Wilson, who is also sort of the antagonist in 9 to 5.
Yes.
She is.
She's the office manager that they send on vacation.
Yeah. Right. Because she reports back to Dabney Coleman. Like everything that they do. I forgot about that. So, yeah, I feel like I don't know her from a lot, but her kind of comedic prowess in this movie she's just so good.
Mm-hmm. And there's something very, I think, scary about this character, too. Like, I know that, like, everybody talks about how camp and wonderful Joan is in Addams Family Values as Debbie, understandable. But I think that there's something a little more sinister about her in this movie.
Sinister and
definitely.
in her own way, even more deranged than Debbie. Because what kind of fucking scheme is this? Do you know what I mean?
It's like, kind of this, they have this whole grifters relationship that this is something that they've been doing for years, that she found Fester and they just kind of grift people for money in these like loan schemes. So interesting.
This is very problematic of me, but with the context of Callum and I come from a country where guns aren't a thing, but there's a moment when she pulls out a tiny little handgun, which I just think is so chic. Like that.
She's packing.
I would be into it for that.
It's definitely like a lady, like an older woman gun. Yeah, it's just this.
You can put that right on your garter.
Yeah, yeah, a garter belt gun. Yeah, with a pearl handle.
But the performance is so good. It's so wild, and the look as well is incredible. It's drag. Everything is.
She's
drag.
She's putting on a character when she meets the Addams family.
Jinx Monsoon, you're putting on a character. Yeah, when she comes in and she's got like the full necktie and like the menswear like suit. Oh, I love it. So good.
He was found in Miami, tangled in a tuna net. It was just last month during the Hurricane Helga. The sky, it was black as pitch. The waves, they were walls of doom. Can you imagine that dragon from the ocean, from the very jaws of oblivion? I'm telling you, there were tests, so many tests. A complete psychological profile. At long last, the Florida Department of the Fish and the Game, they say, lo and behold, oh my, oh my, oh my, go tell it on the mountains. He is your brother.
But yeah, there's something about like as a kid, I was very much like I didn't like her character and that plot line, but I think it was just because
you hate her so much.
She was so good that I didn't like the character that I was just like, no, I'm not into this, and I couldn't separate why I didn't like it. So that was just my little kid like tantrum. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh no, she's everything. Like I love her.
And I think that's the thing. I think again, it's how this movie sets the tone and it strikes the right balance, because it could have gone completely over the top and cartoony. Well, I mean, it is silly, but you know, I think if when we were younger, if it was that real caricature of an absolute nightmare of a woman, it would not have fit into this slightly like to some extent grounded version of the Addams family. I guess in comparison to, I haven't watched the recent CGI family movie, Addams Family.
We saw the first one. Yeah.
What did you make of it? Is it worth
It's fine. It's also just kind of a generic animated kids movie now. Yeah. It's like there's not anything that remarkable about it.
My takeaway from it is what they did, and I feel like it's kind of similar to in this movie. It starts off in the house, but then the whole situation is that kind of like they lose the house and they have to go to like a normal like suburb.
Okay.
And that was kind of like the idea. It was just like the Addams Family fitting in. And so I just wanted, as a viewer, I was just like, no, go back to the house.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted them to be there and be living in their world. And so at the end of it, I was just like, it's fine. It's not bad. It's not offensive in any way. It's just like it could have been better.
Do you guys remember all of those Facebook images going around of Tim Burton directing the Addams Family? Who was in the poster
on the fake
the fake movie? I'm assuming Johnny Depp was.
Oh wow! So Johnny Depp as Gomez? I'm guessing.
Oh God, I hope
I don't know.
But I mean, this is one of my pet peeves. I went on and on about it forever. Like the fake movie posters for Hocus Pocus 2 was like the one that was constantly doing the rounds before, and then we did get a Hocus Pocus 2, which
and then we got Beetlejuice too.
Yeah. Yep. Because the fake Beetlejuice poster had Johnny Depp on it as well.
It's where they get you is the fake trailers on YouTube. Is when I get coworkers saying, "Are they really making a live action Simpsons movie?" And I'm just like, no.
Engage your critical faculty.
That is happening over Matt Groening and James L. Brooks' dead body.
Yeah.
Sister Act 3 is the one that I see more and more recently.
Oh, like, sure, yeah.
Just, I don't know. Leave some things we need to leave in the 90s.
We get the same fake Facebook posts of "Get ready for the Death Becomes Her" remake, which is never going to happen.
Anne Hathaway, Kate Hudson, Lady Gaga, and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. And it's like...
To be fair, I would go and see that.
I would too, but...
But, like, I love that one has real... Like, the actors are starting to comment on it.
Yeah.
That I want to say that Anne Hathaway has, like, commented on the rumor of the Facebook post.
Yeah.
Oh, actually...
It's gotten out of hand.
Martha, what's her name? Martha Plimpton, is it?
Yes, yeah.
With this whole Goonies 2 thing, like Martha Plimpton was like, this is not happening. There is not a script. I'm not attached to it.
Thank God.
Real. Like,
That's another one that I was asked last night if I was excited for the Goonies sequel.
It's picking up steam and people are starting to believe it. And I'm sitting here going, no, you people, come on. It is not happening. But then the fact that so many people started to believe it, I was like, maybe it is. Am I wrong?
Yeah. It's the world we live in.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about some more characters and actors in this. So, Thing, right? Mm-hmm. Scott, you said
my favorite character
as a kid. It was your favorite character. Loved it as well.
Blew my mind as well. Those effects, like especially that FedEx sequence where he's like scuttling around, with all the kind of paper blowing about and stuff. Like, how did they do that? My mind was absolutely good. But now, when you're watching it in higher definition and you can see
it looks a little crunchy.
Blue screen.
Yeah.
I would always prefer something that was a little clunky, though. Like, we bang on our podcast quite a lot about CGI and the sort of lack of... we love a puppet. We love a real thing. And I think, I just think it's so charming. Like, that opening sequence with Thing, just sort of running through the house and the stuff with the roller skate and stuff. It's so charming.
So great.
It's so charming.
And I think they did a pretty good job in Wednesday of keeping it as much of a person and a performance as possible. Yeah. So I want to read this that I found, and I'm not sure how much of your deep dives everybody found this or not. So Thing first appeared in Addams' 1954 book called Homebodies, according to Phil Hoare. Okay, Addams was inspired by Phil Harris's 1950s novelty song, The Thing. One of Addams' early cartoons introduced a mysterious entity known only as the Thing, who was said to be too horrifying to be seen by human eyes. Compared to the adaptations later on, the Thing is actually a person of unknown origin, and he's observing the household through slightly open doors and balustrades from around corners and beneath windowsills, with his face and hands, or just his eyes and hands, clearly seen by the reader. So in the early comics, he was just their spooky, whoever.
You just kind of had to find him in the back of the comics.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until the sitcom where they introduced it as a hand, and it was the actor who played Lurch using his hand to come in through these little boxes.
Yeah, and that thing about it coming through the boxes is, and never mind, I'll take that back, sorry.
Well, I just think it's just an artifact. It's a sitcom, and they had to do what they could to get him in and out. But I just think that was an interesting thing or a little kind of tidbit that it was just this entity, or just kind of like this spooky kind of person living there that they kind of didn't even know about. And then it just turned into what it is now. But we kind of love Thing as kind of another servant, kind of a pet, kind of.
Sure.
Member of the family.
Mm-hmm. A weird.
Yeah, what's his role? I like it. It's another one of those sort of very queer thing. I think it's why the Addams Family, it's why I respond to the Addams Family more than the Munsters, is the sort of queerness of them where they never explain what they are, or because we don't know what Thing is, or is he someone's relation? Is he a pet? Is he a servant? Like what is that?
Yeah.
And we don't need it explained, actually. I think we do. I think in a lot of contemporary films we do too much explaining.
Right.
I think if the Wednesday series goes on for too long, we'll get the Thing backstory and
we'll get the very special Thing episode.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Emily in Paris just got renewed for a 5th season, so who knows how the hell long Wednesday will go on if they like money.
Yes.
Little Wednesday sidebar here. We watched the first episode of it, and I just wasn't in it. And again, on paper, like Daryl Hannah and Tim Curry, I think Luis Guzman and Catherine Zeta-Jones, good idea.
Yeah.
Good casting. Jenna Ortega, great. But just it felt like, to me, it just wasn't. It wasn't the right tone. It wasn't the right way to do the Addams Family. I was just quite disappointed by Wednesday.
You know what my big problem with it was? I liked about half of it, and I kind of got in the second half of it that, this is just turning into Harry Potter. Like, this is just kind of the archetypes that you see in all of those books and the stories that I think it was just kind of lazy of just kind of going in that direction.
But was it also kind of turning into Sabrina as well?
A little bit of Sabrina, too.
Freak of the week.
I think one of the things I respond to in the Addams Family, and I think one of the things that makes the 90s films work is that, like, fundamentally, like, they're all weird, but they love each other.
Yes.
And I think the thing in Wednesday, where it's like that Wednesday and Morticia have fallen out, or they're not speaking, or whatever it is, just doesn't feel truthful to those characters to me. I don't think Morticia wouldn't let that kid go to that school if she hadn't, if they hadn't buried the hatchet,
right.
Maybe literally, but like, you know. Like.
Yeah, no, I like that. I agree with that. Okay, kind of switching gears a little bit. What I liked in this movie is that kind of going along with their old money situation, Lurch is kind of just like a butler and a driver. He's not like in the show. He was like, he's cooking and he's like, but like he's got his function and he does his thing, and grandmama cooks. She makes like these disgusting meals, and Lurch is like, he's driving, he's doing his thing. And this actor, Carol Stroiken, who plays Lurch,
I always remember him from The Witches of Eastwick. He's also a similar character in that movie.
Yes, I hadn't put two and two together there, but absolutely, that's him. Yeah,
and he's also in Star Trek The Next Generation, playing a very similar character to Deanna Troy's mother. He plays Mr. Home, and he's anytime Deanna Troy's mother comes on screen, Star Trek listeners, you've got me. You're listening right now. He accompanies her. He carries her luggage. He's really, really funny. And he, at least when I was going to college, lived in Pasadena, where the two of us live now.
Would you see him out?
We would see him out all the time. And let me tell you this little fun story. One of my best friends, Jose, and I would always be like, oh, I saw Lurch like at, Einstein Bagels today. Like, oh, I saw Lurch like wherever. And we went on a college trip to Oregon. We went to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for a week to, watch all these Shakespeare plays. And the Oregon Shakespeare Festival is every summer they do it. They still do it. And, actors from all over the country come along to go see these shows that they do. And he was there he wasn't acting. He was just there, I'm assuming, to see the Shakespeare Festival. And my friend Jose and I are there on the trip, and we're like, fucking Lurch is here, following us from Pasadena. He's here to watch some Shakespeare. But we're like, there he was. Because, it's in Ashland, Oregon, which is a very small town, and it's kind of big deal is the Shakespeare Festival. So we're in the town square, and there's little food carts and this and that, and we were getting a hot dog, and we're like, this is fucking Lurch.
He grabbed onto the roof of your car, and he was
he was just following along. We did drive, actually. Yeah, it's a long drive, but we did it. But I love his performance in this, and I know iconically in the sitcom he's got the "you rang" kind of thing, and he's silent in these movies,
silent.
right?
I don't think he has any lines.
Yeah, so I kind of like that he's a silent character. I don't think we needed the "you rang" kind of tie-in,
and it adds to that sort of German expressionist kind of leaning of the whole thing, isn't it? To have him as a silent character. I like him.
Yeah, he also was in Scott. You and I did not see.
Oh, he's in Dr. Sleep.
He's in Dr. Sleep, and he's in Gerald. Well, we saw Dr. Sleep, but he's in Gerald's Game.
So he's kind of a Mike Flanagan staple.
Since Gerald's Game, he's been in a couple of Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan would like that original comic thing. Original cartoon thing, like hanging around in the background, spot thing. Imagine that. Addams Family.
I remember when I first saw a ghost in The Haunting, and I was like, "What?" And they like rewound it. I was like, "Am I going crazy right now?"
Yeah. I remember I caught it.
I was obsessed.
I caught it late after you had watched it, so you were like watching my reactions for all of these things, and when I like screamed out loud at the big car jump scare?
Oh, yeah, that's a full-on jump scare.
The scream, we scrumped. Like when that happened, we were, yeah, that was wild. But anyhow, Carol Stricken, genius casting. I mean, in this movie, just along with everyone else. I don't even know who else to talk about. Let's see, what do we got?
I was reading that the actor who plays Pugsley, Jimmy Workman, that he accompanied his sister to her audition. Oh, yes, and she just randomly mentioned to the casting person that, oh yeah, my brother looks like Pugsley, and they're like, oh, does he? We'll bring him up. Yeah. We'll take him, actually. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Imagine.
What a read as well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes of the movie, it has ever since I was a kid, is there's something about Morticia walking Fester through the graveyard.
Yes.
Of all of the family history of the Addamses. I love that scene.
Yes, the vulture who wouldn't peck anymore.
Aunt Laborgia, executed by a firing squad. Cousin Fledge, torn limb from limb by 4 wild horses. And darling Uncle Eimar, buried alive. Psychopaths, fiends, mad dog killers, Roots Fester, pioneers, lest we forget. Your beloved Muerto. After you left, he was simply a different vulture. He wouldn't circle. He wouldn't peck. That's how much you mean to this family.
Angelica's so good in that scene, and it's really her as a character. Morticia's really feeling Fester out, of kind of explaining this family history to him, that Morticia definitely has her doubts. She's not really sure. And this is, I think, a big test for him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love this scene.
She's constantly
the production design on those... Like, the production design on those graves as well is so gorgeous. It looks great. It's very, like, not to keep harping on, but it's very Burton-esque. Yeah. Like, it feels sort of Beetlejuice of a world with the modern art from Beetlejuice.
Yeah, the production design is absolutely amazing throughout, like, and the sets. And capturing this iconic house, I think they did a great job with the house itself. Like,
so good.
All of the rooms and the exterior as well. It's really, really gorgeous. But
there's something about like how kind of empty the house is. It's not like an elaborate like haunted mansion. Like the hallways are just like, you know, wooden slats and it's just dusty. But yeah, it's just kind of this the production design is crazy.
I love the name of all of the books on the bookshelf.
Yeah. That's such a cool device as well. The Gone with the Wind and Hurricane Irene or whatever it is at the end, where, opening the books, and that always struck me as a kid as well. I guess there's the witchy sort of magical connection there.
Yeah,
that direct bit of magic, I guess.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think that it has to be Fester at the end of the movie, because it kind of completes this whole arc for Christopher Lloyd. I mean, we haven't really talked a lot about Christopher Lloyd's performance. So good, but it kind of creates this whole arc of that when he really grabs the book, you know, oh, this really is Fester.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And Christopher Lloyd, like, that's quite a different performance from
very different
sitcom Fester. So it does feel like, and I think Christopher Lloyd was a fan of the cartoon, and you know, he was really bringing his own take to it. But it's not the most Christopher Lloyd-y Christopher Lloyd performances either. It's sort of an interesting.
That's why it's so unique. Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm. It could have been Anthony Hopkins as well. So. Which I imagine that. Cher, Anthony Hopkins, I don't know who the hell else.
Wow. I mean, he probably was committed to doing Silence of the Lambs with Demi.
Yeah.
So he probably couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So going back a little bit to the production design, Scott and I, as our listeners know, are obsessed with locations. And the fact that they built that damn house
On a hillside
the whole
in Burbank.
exterior of that house on a hillside. Yeah.
How they hide Los Angeles is pretty good, too.
Wild.
Honestly, it does. They really captured it. It is the cartoon house, but it's solid. It doesn't feel like just a facade either. I think they really did a brilliant job.
You know, because I feel like actually Casper does a decent job at it, because the house in Casper is like ridiculous. It's insane. It's so big, but you know, and they did the thing where they built the porch, right? And then the rest, all you kind of see in life and in the daylight is the porch. But here it's like the whole thing, and we're going like, are they using some crazy Disneyland forced perspective
with the windows?
Yeah, like maybe
I thought of that when Fester's at the gate.
Yeah. But it's just however they achieved it. It's there, and you can tell that they're there and that they're in front of it.
And they do a little bit of a redesign of the house for Addams Family Values. I don't know if it was a budgetary thing of that we can't go $5 million over budget, so the set has to be just kind of condensed down a little bit. Yeah. But also the house in Values is very successful. It's a little more minimal of when you see the entryway in Values.
Yeah, the staircase is a bit different as well, isn't it? Yeah. It's not the kind of double-edged one. Yeah,
I really love the conservatory. Yeah, where you know Morticia's just snipping her roses. But to go along with the production design, we have to talk about the costumes.
I think that the costumes got the Oscar nomination for it.
Yeah,
Ruth Myers.
Yep, and you know, Morticia's look can go even on film, even on the big screen. You know, we just went to a screening of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, at the
the Academy Museum.
Peaches Christ hosted that.
Yep.
One,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. We went. Yeah, we were there. At that.
I counted like at least 4 guests of our podcast.
There were a lot of
audience.
movies that made us gay guests at that audience. So we saw it at the big screen at the Academy Museum, and you know, Elvira's costume is Spirit Halloween. Like, it's no higher quality than that. It's a deluxe, you know, witch woman dress, right?
But she wears it well.
But she wears it well. But even, I think it still kind of holds up with the styling and everything. You don't really watch it going, oh, that dress looks flimsy, unless you really are little faggy 13-year-olds and are pausing every screenshot, you know. So I think they could have kind of gone down a route where it was a very simple black dress, but Morticia's dress
there's a lot of detail in it when you look close at it.
At all.
There's beading in it.
Well, like you were saying, isn't there like metal corsetry and like all this stuff built into it?
Metal corset, that gorgeous glittery cloak that she's wearing as well. Yeah, there's so much attention to detail. It's funny. It's these characters that are dressed all in black, because it's the same with Elphaba, isn't it? That dress is actually insanely detailed as well, but you know, from a distance, you don't quite get the full effect. But yeah, it's
Morticia has her going out black dress when she goes to the school performance. That there's some cool fur on it.
There's like
when she's talking to the teacher.
Yeah, it's like fur or feathers or something like around her shoulders, and it's a going out look, and it's just like
As someone who mostly only wears black, I found that very relatable. Like, I've got my going out black.
Pete wears a lot of black.
Yeah, we have a lot of black t-shirts. But I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes black doesn't read on film, so I feel like maybe they don't feel like they need to go all out for it. You know, we just watched The Wizard of Oz for an episode on
episode
that
250.
For episode 250, and we broke out our 3D Blu-ray of The Wizard of Oz and watched it on our 3D TV. It's an old TV. But, you know, that dress is so black. I don't know what kind of material they use for it, but a lot of the detail doesn't read, you know, unless it's in an extreme close-up. But I think there's just something, you know, in these shots of Morticia, I think a lot in the sequel too, they kind of really showcase her looks a little bit more, I think, in the sequel.
I love that she really loves a jungle red nail.
Yes. I like that she has a red nail. Elvira's nails are black. You know?
A little pop of color.
Yeah.
But
and she wears a red lip.
And a red lip. Yeah, and
Yeah.
all of these little details, although they might not read directly on camera, it all adds to the texture of it. I think this film has it. You can feel it. You can feel the kind of dust on the shelves, and you can really get the sense of the weight of the movement of the costumes. It's
that old money thing as well. Like it's,
That's true.
She's old money, so she doesn't need to show off.
That's true, and she doesn't need to show off, and so the outfits are maybe not like labels, but they're good quality, right?
They're not ostentatious.
Yes, and that's how you know that people are really rich.
A good statement
right?
piece.
When it's well made. It's that shit that's like, even Wednesday. That's something that could have just been a black dress with a white collar, but when you see it, there's texture. There's color. There's black and white. Kind of in this like woven fabric to her dress. And that could have easily just been a black dress, but I think even with Wednesday's costume, we have that kind of textural design out, and then when they're out, when they go to school and they have like little coats that they put on, they're like these wool coats. And they're in like North Hollywood and Burbank. It is probably hot as hell. And these kids are in these wool, pea coats or whatever. At least Pugsley's got shorts on. But I think there's just everything about like they just went in on all of these details, and it just that's why it's just timeless. And
did you notice the actress? I can't think of her name. I think her name is Mercedes, the Girl Scout.
Oh,
who shows up in Addams Family Values. I'm thinking of Harmony, but her character's name is Harmony on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, sure.
That it's just kind of interesting that they brought this little actress back.
I like to think they're the same character in both.
Sure.
It's such an iconic scene that
Mercedes McNabb. Yeah,
Mercedes McNabb. Yeah, that lemonade stand sequence with are your Girl Scout cookies made of real Girl Scouts? Are the lemonade blah blah blah? But there was something about that scene like that. I don't think it was in a trailer, but that was embedded in my memory. That
yes,
scene. But
I think it was in a lot of the marketing
TV spots. Yeah,
guess so. But what really kind of flabbergasted me is all the product placement for Tombstone Pizza.
That big billboard of Tombstone Pizza.
I thought it was like, it's funny because it's called Tombstone Pizza.
Yeah. There would have had to have been a tie-in of the Addams Family on Tombstone.
That billboard took up like 2/3 of the screen. It was huge.
It was but it was cute. And I think if you're going to use product placement in a movie, that's the way to do it. Like sort of tongue-in-cheek, totally appropriate. Tombstone Pizza, yeah.
And they had to have chosen it just because of the name, because Tombstone Pizza is frozen pizza. It's not even like a restaurant. It's a brand of frozen grocery store pizza. That's kind of like lower tier. It's not even like...
It's like, I mean, it's even lower tier to like Red Baron.
No, Red Baron's below Tombstone. Don't get it twisted.
I love a good Red Baron pizza, though.
I do too. But we do not have discerning taste when it comes to frozen pizza. We'll take it all. But yeah, I thought that was kind of are there more Tombstone Pizza references, or is it just that billboard there?
I think just because there was the sort of FedEx scene as well, I was just noticing where the product placement was happening, and just because it was that massive billboard in that sequence when you brought up, I was like, the Tombstone Pizza.
I mean, I think that when your movie your very modest studio movie is going $5 million over budget, I would imagine that Barry Sonnenfeld was like, bring on the corporate sponsorships. Because I was reading that this was in development at Orion, and when it went $5 million over budget, Orion had to hand it off to Paramount to finish the movie, and Paramount did the distribution with Columbia, who I think did overseas. So this was a turbulent production that it all worked out in the long run, because it grossed over $20 million in 91 opening weekend, which those type of numbers, movies didn't really gross that much money opening weekend. So, I mean, it definitely paid off, but this was a turbulent production I think that it just went crazy over budget.
Yeah, and I read that the first DP quit, and then he was replaced, and the replacement was off sick. So Barry Sonnenfeld, that you mentioned, Scott, he was, previously a director of photography himself, had to step into the role. It just seems like, God, the money must have just been absolutely trickling out to cover all of these bases. So I'm not surprised they went over budget.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, it was like the buzz surrounding this movie when it was released was so huge, and I think you just had that kind of built-in audience of the people that watched it as kids and they're now adults, so they've got money to spend, and then the kids of the era were just immediately wanting to go see it. So I think you just kind of had people coming at it from all angles, so it was kind of going to be successful.
I was going to say 4-quadrant.
Yeah.
Yep.
I noticed as well that they had this brilliant teaser trailer. I watched it on YouTube, which is a reference to a Charles Addams cartoon, which doesn't involve the family, but it's the cinema screening, and a woman in the movie is like screaming, and it cuts back to the Addams family just sort of eating their popcorn, and it is such an iconic teaser trailer. Like, I absolutely love it, and it's again a sort of special thing that was filmed just for that. But I love that it referenced that cartoon as well. It was such a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that just kind of unlocked a memory. I was like, I don't really remember that, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to find that on YouTube so we can watch that, because that's amazing. So, I mean, I love that at the very end of this movie, it kind of sets up like, okay, well, we're going to have a sequel.
Yeah.
Because she's knitting the little like multi-legged baby onesie. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that's Morticia knitting. I think that might be from the comic, which I think is just a cool little.
That thing of her knitting the 3-legged sort of jumpsuit thing is a panel from one of the comics. It's like a direct lift.
Okay.
So it feels, like a nice tie.
Interesting.
And I love that. I love that moment. And also a very 90s thing to have, like, to set up for your sequel in the end. When, like, before you had to wait through the credits and see 3 different things for like 12 different films that may never come out. But, like, you know, just a very simple, like, I'm going to have a baby and that'll be the plot of the next film.
Yeah, but setting up the sequel, but it's also a satisfying ending in and of itself. You know, it's not like you need to tune in next time. It's...
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if it didn't happen, if the money fell through or whatever, you'd just be like, okay, this is still a great movie. But it's also very sitcom-y. It's also very 90s sitcom. It's something that they would do. It's just like, we're going to have a baby. Like, we're going
to introduce a kid.
Yeah, the show's been going on for 5 years.
You're going to get a cute kid.
Our little kids aren't that cute anymore, so we got to get another one.
Do we want to talk a little bit about the... family reunion / going away party for Fester? I love these scenes.
Yeah, there's some really great stuff going on.
I love to see all of these extras in the scene. They did a really fun job just kind of dressing all of these people in just kind of their various kooky looks.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're varied kooky looks as well. It's not like just everybody's in black. We've got a real variety, and it feels expensive, this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is this the first scene where we get Cousin It?
Yep. When he rolls up in his little car.
Yes, I love that car.
I love that
What
car.
Is that? I think Cousin It is my favourite character from the Addams Family. There's something about a character that talks and everyone else can understand them, even though they're like just
gibberish,
speaking in these little meats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that car's amazing. I'm going to look that up, see what the heck that is, because it's. I think they drove them in Goldmember. I think Dr. Evil and his henchmen drove similar cars.
Does he do like a getaway in a little car like this?
Yeah,
that seems
like,
very Mike Myers.
I think they're like three-wheeler cars. This is where we just get like all the different members of like their kind of the Addams family's like orbit.
I always recognize. I'm not sure who Morticia calls him, but one of the nerds from Saved by the Bell that was always in scenes with Screech. Whenever they needed nerds, he's the one that's dancing with Wednesday. He has the hunchback.
Is it Lumpy? Is it maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I always know him from Saved by the Bell.
And this is another occasion where, with the costuming, this is when they first put Wednesday in kind of like a baby Morticia dress.
Yep.
Right? Which I think is so cool. Just such a fun idea.
Yeah. Oh, there's just such nice choices throughout this film. You know, there's a real kind of attention to detail throughout. And just having little moments like that. Love it.
So we watched a bit of, was it just on TV? Addams Family Values. I think it was just on cable. We were just scrolling through and it came on. So we're watching a bit of Addams Family Values, and Carol Kane replaces this actress as Grandmama. Judith Malina. Carol Kane replaces Judith Malina as Grandmama. And I'm like, Carol Kane, what a brilliant role. Maybe she just wasn't available for the first movie, and now here we have her in Addams Family Values. But I was telling Scott, I was like, Grandmama in the first movie is like doing some solid work.
Sure.
Yeah.
She's got some great lines.
She's knocking these lines out of the park.
Out. Yeah, we were like,
dinner's going to be late.
Yeah, not for nothing. Judith Malina is really kind of killing it in this movie.
She's great. There was a whole cut subplot involving Grandmama, and like she had to fix a fog machine or something on the roof of the house. So yeah, I wish that we had a bit more Grandmama in this. That is, but she is great, Judith Malina. And much as we like Carol Kane, and as good as she is in Values under more makeup, because she was probably only, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Again, we just watched The Princess Bride for the podcast as well. Again, heavy prosthetics for Carol Kane, but those eyes, Carol Kane's at it. But yeah, I think there was a bit of tension on the set between Judith Malina and some of the other actors, and she would,
interesting.
She would sit in a trailer just smoking joint after joint, I think Angelica Huston said. And
Judith Malina, Judith Malina, born in Germany, that her and her family escaped Nazi Germany.
Oh wow!
And came to America too.
That? 1926. Okay, that's interesting. Carol Kane would have probably been in her middle to later 40s in the 90s. But yeah, I think she does some solid work. I would have loved to have seen her on the roof fixing a fog machine. Anytime an old lady is doing manual labor, I'm there for it. That's great. I think it would have been an awesome touch. But yeah, I was just like, hey, she's actually doing some solid joke telling in this. So.
Solid jokes is Uncle Knick Knack.
You love the Uncle Knick Knack line, that whole run.
I love that shit. I love that whole run. I think it's so funny.
Yes.
Uncle Knick Knack's winter wardrobe. Uncle Knick Knack's summer wardrobe. Uncle Knick Knack.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it just shows Angelica, not really known in the 80s and 90s for being a comedic actor. Mm-hmm. And she comes in here and is just destroying this role.
She's eating it up. Yeah. It's beautiful.
She's got the chops.
Yeah, I remember the very first time I saw Captain EO. And
are you guys familiar with Captain EO?
We're at Disneyland.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So we're at Disneyland watching Captain EO, and we come out, and my dad was like, I don't know about that princess. And at that time, I was really young. This is 87, 88 when that comes out. So I'm 9 or 10 when I first see it. So I didn't know who she was. I think I had seen Ice Pirates, but didn't really put two and two together that was her. And my dad was like, I don't know about that princess at the end. They could have got somebody prettier. And I was like, Dad, shade.
Gorgeous Angelica.
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful.
She's so scary when she's the machine.
Yeah.
Witch lady with the long fingernails.
This Borg queen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's fierce.
Don't get me...
Between that and the Grand High Witch.
Sure.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, Angelica was on a roll post-Oscar win.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Grand High Witch is camp, and that role she's funny in that. So that is 1 year prior to this. So, okay, so it is 1990, 1991. We're really coming into our...
She was in her Dark Lady era.
Her dark... Yeah.
I think that's the thing to do after you win an Oscar as well, though. Is to just start making really fun films.
Yes.
Or else you might not make another one, I'm afraid.
I love Angelica Huston telling stories of when asked about what was it like to beat Oprah for that Oscar. And Angelica says, I was never invited to go on the show. Oh. And whenever she sees Oprah's at industry parties, Oprah makes it a point to never talk to her. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. I like that Oprah's petty.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes me like her more, to be honest.
That's petty. That's Lori Petty, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I don't know. I think as unexpected as she was for me at 13, I mean, maybe in the industry it's like, oh, what a great, perfect choice. I think she's kind of going to always be known for Morticia, which is not a bad thing. I think that's
her and Angelica and Raul are always my Morticia and Gomez.
Yeah, same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And again, I like the sitcom, but to me, this is the definitive Addams Family.
Different type of energy for the sitcom too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think she kind of said that after Raul Julia passed away that she wouldn't do another one without him.
I think that Raul has said just kind of these were the last few years of his life and just kind of how this role I think this role really meant a lot to him, especially being recognized by kids when out in public of just kind of how much this role really meant to children and audiences, that I think it really meant a lot to him in the last few years of his life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's really sweet.
I think you can always see when actors are having fun as well, and it feels like you can feel the chemistry between them, and it feels like they're enjoying themselves. And maybe less so for Grandmama stuck in a trailer smoking joints, but that's a type of fun.
That is a type of
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we should probably start wrapping this up because I do need to get back to the office.
Yeah, listeners, we're recording this in the middle of the day because this is a transatlantic phone call.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Much appreciated for making the time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell our listeners about your show and how they can find you on socials and how they can listen to Once Upon a VHS?
Sure. So Once Upon a VHS is our 80s and 90s fantasy movie podcast. We've covered everything from Never-Ending Story to A Gnome Named Norm. I say that, we've only had like 12
Oh my God.
So
when I was listening to that episode, I had no idea that movie existed.
I did.
I was
sorry
like,
for introducing it into your life.
Sorry.
What is this? No, I loved it. Mm-hmm. I loved the conversation about it, but no idea.
Yeah. Well,
no idea that Stan Winston's lone directing credit.
Sometimes there are little, I wouldn't say necessarily gems, but sometimes more obscure films, in addition to the big heavy hitters of fantasy that we all know and love. So we like to do a little bit of a mixture and just have a bit of a chat, Michael and I. And we've our new season, we're kind of bringing in guests. We are going to be chatting to movies that made us gay at some point as well. We need to set up that episode soon.
Yes.
But you can follow us. Predominantly on Instagram is where we post most of our sort of social media content stuff. So we're at Once Upon a VHS, and you can find us pretty much anywhere that you're listening to this.
I'm listening to all your episodes right now, and I'm having a lot of fun. You're really good at pulling something from my memory that's buried way in the back of my brain that I have not thought about since I was 5 years old. You posted something really quick. The Enchanted Elm Forest.
Yes.
That I had not thought about that since I was a child, and I had no idea what it was even called. But I just had images in my mind.
Is that the weird Croatian one?
It's that weird Croatian animated movie that we looked up clips.
That was wild.
I mainly remember the painter and the little fire creature that talks in the hiss. So that was fun. I hadn't thought of that in years.
Oh, well, listen, this is the amazing thing about the podcast. We discover things all the time. It's like little nuggets of not just nostalgia for things that you kind of clearly remember, but it is all the little things that are connected to that and kind of pulling a picture together. There are movies on here which I had vague memories of, and revisiting them has given us a really nice opportunity to share something with other people. And, oh, do you remember this? And it's been really fun putting it together. So thank you for inviting us on, and thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you both for coming on the show. We'd love to have you on again for something else as we move forward. So we'll set that up. But listeners, go check them out on Instagram and go listen to Once Upon a VHS. Listeners, we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Oh, I think Drag Race UK is out.
Ooh, fun.
Maybe we'll watch that.
I'd watch that.
Okay.
Listeners, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thanks for sticking around to the very, very end. We did a little time traveling between where we left you moments ago.
Just a little bit. I know that we definitely mentioned their podcast, Once Upon a VHS, but I have been listening to it.
Scott's their newest super fan.
All month. You know, Pete, I'm very picky when it comes to podcasts.
I know you are.
I'm very picky when it comes to movie podcasts.
You know, I wanted to tell the guys this while we had them on the call, and I didn't get around to telling them, but you know, we're both very discerning. There's a dime a dozen for like queer, you know, two cis gay dudes.
Not to be shady
talking about movies. I mean, we're one of them.
But we're one of them.
You know, we're two cis gay dudes taking up space talking about movies. And, you know, there's a lot of them out there. And you and I are very much like, hey, if we really like you, then we want to work with you, you know? And so we did both make it a point to check out their content, listen to it, and you just have become a
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we didn't think that they were a good show, we wouldn't bring them on ours and put our name behind them and all that good stuff. So check out Once Upon a VHS.
Yeah.
And all their fun back catalog.
They're just recording new episodes, too.
Oh, yes. They're starting their second season. So they don't quite have quite as the backlog as Movies That Made Us Gay. They've got some catching up to do, but they're on their way. But I think it's just about, I think we've reached that time.
Is it that time,
in
Pete?
The show. Yes, it is. It's time for some Patreon shout-outs. We want to head over to patreon.com/movies that made us gay to say hello and thank you to all of our wonderful and active patrons. We got a couple new ones, including Brian and Muhammad. Thank you very much for signing up, just like Sarah and Richard, Mark, Jeff, Deja, Amy, Erica, Anna, Mitchie, our friends at How Do You Drew, Andy, Kate, Pep, Roberto, Daisy, Patrick, Kelly, Chrissy, Steven, Desiree, Laura, Thomas, Lori, Brenna, Jess Rabbit, Lawrence, Lisa, Alexis, Thomas, Millie, Ted, Benny, Melanie, Susan, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Aaron, John, Nick and Shannon,
and Ruffino,
Christine, and Ruffino. Yes, indeed.
Just got to get that Ruffino.
You got to get it in there. But you guys, thank you so much for being patrons. Like we said, head over to patreon.com/.
A lot of fun stuff.
It's gay, and there is so much stuff. We're in the planning process for some upcoming $5 tier activities.
Yeah, our fall lineup for TV shows that made us gay is going to be really fun. We're going to be doing our first Roseanne Halloween episode in October, and we're going to talk about Friends around Thanksgiving time.
Yes, indeed. Our latest one is
Blossom.
Double Date. That's up there now in the TV
Fun episode.
section. And all of those TV episodes, including our entire summer series of Beverly Hills 90210 rewatch episodes, we did about 6 of those, 5 or 6. That's all at the $5 level. That's just TV That Made Us Gay. And for $10, you get all that good stuff, plus you get our Watch With Us commentaries.
Yeah.
We got 46, I think I counted, 46, 47.
There'll be a new one around the time this episode comes out in a week or so.
Yes.
There'll be new Patreon stuff.
So the Watch With Us commentaries are a bonus track. We watch a movie, we deliver commentary as the movie is playing, and we give you instructions on how to sync up your copy of the movie if you want to watch it at home on Netflix or HBO Max or Disney Plus, wherever it's running. Play it on your TV and then sync up the audio track on your laptop or your iPad or whatever, and you are watching the movie right there with us. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. That's at the $10 level at patreon.com/movies that made us gay. Lots of fun stuff. And thank you to all of our wonderful new patrons. You guys are great. And all the donations there go to keeping the show on the air every week for free, ad-free.
Yep.
For all of you. So thank you for doing
No
that.
mattress ads yet.
No. We don't want to take a minute to talk about Squarespace at all. We'd also love it if you would rate and review the show. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Give us 5 stars. Write some kind words.
Indeed.
It's been a while since we've had a review.
I know. I'm going to Apple Podcasts right now to see what's going on. Let's see. Let's go to shows, and let's go to Movies That Made Us Gay. If you have an iPad or an iPhone, this comes pre-installed. You just got to look up the show. And yeah, our last one was July 20th. You guys, we need a new review on Apple Podcasts. We're standing strong at a 4.9 star rating out of 5, so that's really great. So thank you for doing that. But yeah. Check us out over on those platforms, and wherever you listen, just go ahead and subscribe and follow along, and you'll get alerted anytime a new episode drops. So that's a great way to follow us. Let's see what else. We're on Instagram at Movies That Made Us Gay. We're most active there, so check out our Instagram. All the engagement that you can provide on Instagram really helps us to reach a wider audience. So, likes, comments, posting to your stories, all that sharing, all that fun stuff really helps the show.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring, and then liking and then reposting and all that stuff.
Love that.
So do that, and it helps us to reach a much wider audience. So thank you for all of our Instagram followers. Like I said, we're very active over there, so we like to engage with you guys doing that. So you can follow us, our personal socials if you want. My name is Pete. I'm at Peter Lasagna on Instagram.
Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and follow my letterbox.
Yes, indeed. Until next time, everyone. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.